everybody. We are live and we are broadcasting all over the world. We've got listeners and viewers in America, in Germany, in Switzerland actually, and somebody in Australia. So just behave, please.
Shalom Alechem.
Okay.
Good morning.
Okay, the title of this talk is that today is the Yahrzeit, the memorial of Yosef HaTzadik. One of the 12 tribes is Yosef. Yeah? Yaakov had 4 wives. One of his, the favorite wife was Rachel. And do you want to cover your head or something?
Oh,
He's got one. I don't mind if not.
No,
It's just,
of course I want to. Just continue.
Rachel had 2 sons after she was barren for a long time, and her first son was called Yosef. Yosef HaTzadik he is called, and soon we will see why he's called a tzaddik. It's the only person in the whole of the Torah which anybody refers to him as being a tzaddik. Not Abraham, not Yitzchak, not Yaakov, not Moshe Rabbeinu. Nobody is called a tzaddik by any commentators or by the Talmud itself. It's Yosef which is being referred to. Pardon?
Is this Lubavitch Rebbe?
No, it's not. No.
So his your side.
No, that's on Shabbos. That's on Shabbos. So today is the 1st of Tammuz. It's the first day of the month of Tammuz. Even though that yesterday was also Rosh chodesh. Yesterday and today is Rosh chodesh, but today is the first day of Tammuz. And the reason why I will point out that Yosef's Yahrzeit is today, we will see in the course of this evening. But before we start with that, I just want to mention that in the writings of the Arizal, Rabbi Luria from Tzfat, he writes that on a day of a Yahrzeit of a specific Rebbe which wrote in Gemara or in Mishnah or in Halacha or in Kabbalah, it doesn't matter where he wrote. If he was a renowned person which has got his own writings, it's a good idea to learn and to speak about that person, because what they do in heaven, they put away all the other works, all the other writings, all the other books, and they only deal with the book of that person, which is the Yahrzeit of his on that day. So if we've got 2 or 3 people's Yahrzeit or 10 people's Yahrzeit, they will deal with all these writings of that person. Yosef HaTzadik is appearing in Genesis through all the parshas from Parshas Vayishlach, Vayetze, is that correct? Yeah, from Vayetze all the way through till the end of Genesis, and is even mentioned at the beginning of Shmois as well, because the Torah there tells us that there was a new king which forgot Joseph. Okay, so Joseph's name is being pulled through quite a bit of parshas, which is not the case with anybody else except Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe and Aaron, Moses and Aaron are the personalities which are also mentioned quite for a long period. But other than them, nobody has got the merit to be mentioned in so many parshas like Joseph. Yeah, and Joseph is called Joseph the Tzaddik, and we will have to understand why that is so. Tzaddik, does everybody know what a tzaddik is? A righteous person, yeah, because everything which he does and it was completely righteous, was like it says in the book. That's how he lived, and maybe even a little bit more than that. Then he would be a chassid if he would do more than what's demanded from him. But Yosef, anything which he did was completely righteous. So today is Yosef's Yahrzeit. It's his memorial day. And the Rabbeinu Bachaya brings the birthday and the memorial day of all the 12 children of Jacob, and the 1st of Tammuz is brought down as the date which he was born. And because we know that tzaddikim, that righteous people, will always have complete years, yeah, they will not die in the middle of a year. Hashem will make sure that he can live out his 12 months. Therefore, if his birthday was today, then his memorial day must also be today. Okay? I think we spoke about that concept before, no? Yeah. Did we?
With every tzaddik.
Every tzaddik. Moses, for example, King David, exactly.
Was he also born on a Saturday?
I did not check this. It is actually checkable, but I didn't check it yet. That's one of the things which I didn't
It's a fun
research.
fact. If you're born on a Saturday, you die on a Saturday.
That could be, but you have to be. That's one point, but it can be a Saturday which doesn't complete the year.
Yes.
Okay,
No,
but
I never said
okay.
I'm
So those
very-
12 tribes, Rabbeinu Bachaya tells us that they were all tzaddikim, they were all righteous people, even though that Yosef is specifically pointed out that he is the biggest tzaddik of all of them. But-
You didn't say any of them was Sadiq until you said Yosef was pointed out. as
Yosef
Sadiq,
is
but
being
they
pointed
weren't.
out to be the tzaddik. But it doesn't mean that the others are not tzaddikim. The others are also tzaddikim, but not. He's not labeled as the tzaddik. Yosef is the only one which has got the label Yosef a tzaddik.
So how do we know the other ones were Sadiq?
Because the Rabbeinu Bachai tells us that they also died on the same day as that they also completed the year.
So maybe I will die and he was there.
Who knows? Maybe your children will be able to say you're tzaddikas. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
but that doesn't make it tzaddikas.
It doesn't make, but if you behave and if you live a life of a tzaddikas, then you will die on the same day. You will complete your years. This is the point. Okay, right. So today is that day, and we have only got maybe another hour left of that specific day, of this auspicious day, and therefore let's use it properly and let's speak about him. And in the schut, in the merit of Yosef HaTzadik, we will all have a personal redemption wherever we need it. Yeah, so everybody needs something. Everybody has got something lacking, and Hashem will help that in the schut of this tzaddik, which we are talking about him today, because it's his yahrzeit today. That in that schut, in this merit, we will have, it will help us to reach our potential. It will reach us. It will help us to reach a redemption in everybody in his own level. So, what is the story? This is my lovely Nomi here.
Zoe Malcolm.
Nah, sorry, Nomi Malcolm. Nomi, I've just told everybody, Nomi Malka, that today is Yosef Tzadik's yahrzeit. And therefore we are talking about him. And because we want, and this is very important, that's why I'm repeating this quickly, on a day of a yahrzeit, it says in Kisvei Arizal, that on the day of a yahrzeit you should learn these writings which that person brought into the world. Now with Yosef HaTzadik there is a lot of parshas which Yosef stretches over, and therefore it's a big schus to learn his teachings, and we will soon see what the main teaching is of his. And in that schut, everybody will have a geula shalema, everybody on his own level. So if you need whatever you need, Hashem will help it. In his schus, you will receive what you need. Okay, Amen. Good.
Amen.
Fine. So
Hebrew days.
he was born and exactly.
If we all die on the same day.
So what's this yahrzeit? As I said in the title of this shiur of tonight, it seems to be that it's got something to do with Rosh Hashanah as well. Okay, so I did say that we are now 3 months away from Rosh Hashanah. As amazing as it sounds, but this is what it is. We've only got the months of Tammuz to complete. Afterwards, the months of Elul, Av, and Elul. Tammuz, Av, and Elul. Yeah, we've got 3 months to complete, and then we are already in the next year. We're in the year 19 afterwards, which is quite
So they've
incredible.
quarter of the year now.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. We've got 1 quarter left, and that's the last quarter, which is quite an amazing quarter because we've got a lot of work to do.
And we were in 5779.
Exactly, that's where we are. So, what's the connection between today's yahrzeit of Yosef HaTzadik and being and Rosh Hashanah? Right, that's the question, and this is what we are going to work on.
Now. No, we're in 5,
So, and I'm thinking to myself, on which end should I start?
We're moving.
That
We're
one.
moving into
This
Are
one.
we in 777 now? or
No, 778.
No, we're in at the
Going into
moment.
9.
Of course.
When the end comes?
It's very easy to remember. 2018, 5778.
Sometime
Yeah, but I-
in the next 200 years.
It always
Yeah.
keeps on going
But
like
we're
this.
in 2018.
Peace God by
Yes,
tomorrow.
we
So
are
we
in
move
for-
into the 9.
Yes.
Oh, well,
We are
of course
always ahead of the thing.
Next year. After Shabbat.
Right. So, who was Yosef? Let's
One of the 12 tribes.
yes,
the
but-
youngest, second youngest, and he was the ruler in Egypt.
He was the ruler. He was the second in command in
my
Egypt.
bad.
But before he becomes the second of command in
He
Egypt,
was
we have to.
sold to sleep.
Okay, so you're working yourself back, and I want to. I want to start from the beginning.
He was the favourite child.
He was.
Why was he the favorite child? Does anybody know? Huh?
Because it was his wife. He was his favourite wife, wasn't he?
Exactly, because he was a product of his favorite wife.
You know how I know that?
It was the first
Jason Mason
son.
Technicolor Dreamcoat.
That's what it is, yeah.
And the dreams
Were you in
interpreter.
that?
Jason Mason Technicolor Dreamcoat, the musical.
Yeah.
Were you in it?
I learned all my best knowledge from musicals.
His first.
Were you in it?
He was the first son of Rachel. Rachel was his favorite wife. He actually wanted to marry only Rachel, Jacob, but Lavan perceived him, and he deceived him, and he was turned into marrying first Leah, and afterwards he got married to Rachel as well. And exactly, yeah, well, all good things we learn from wicked people, right?
That's why we do it. Because if anything, then you shouldn't cover.
Okay, no, so this will be for another time. But the point is that Rachel was his beloved wife, and he didn't have any children from her until many years later. And when eventually the first child was born, then the immediate thing which came into Rachel's mind was the immediate things which came into Rachel's mind was to name him a name which is going to be a tefillah, which is going to be a prayer. She named him by a prayer. And what was her prayer? She asked Hashem, the same way as you gave me this child, please give me another one. Yosef li Hashem ben Acher. Hashem should give me another child. He should add on. Yosef comes from Hosafah, from adding on. Hashem should add me on another child. And as the story goes, she fell pregnant again a bit later, but she did not experience that next child, because that child afterwards was Benjamin, which was born, and through that giving of the birth, she passed away. And therefore, she still knew that she's giving birth, so she said that I want to call him one name. She called him Ben Oni. Yeah, this is the son of my mourning, let's put it this way. But his father didn't want to have a negative name on him, so he called him Benjamin. Okay? Which means the son of my right. Ben Yamin. Ben, the son of my right-hand side, which you can interpret in many different ways. Of course, again, he was a son of the beloved wife, which was his right side. And Benjamin will become, eventually later on in history, will become the key point for the redemption when they are all caught up in Egypt as thinking that they are spies, and then he keeps Benjamin, and only in the merit of Benjamin there's going to be food afterwards. So it's a whole thing which is later on. Everything is a kind of a nevuah here. It's a kind of a prophecy. But I don't want to get stuck with Benjamin because we are talking Joseph. So first of all, the first thing which we realize here is that Yosef, in his name itself, there's something extremely powerful. It's all about realizing that we have to ask Hashem. If we want something, we have to ask Hashem. And what is she asking from Hashem? Please give me another son. And this goes so far that she even calls him that way. And how many Yosefs are around today? There are so many people which carry that name, by Yosef, because that's what it means. Please give me more. Give me more. Everybody has got this wish. Hashem, please give me more. This is not enough. Give me more.
Is there anyone called Oliver Yosef?
Yeah, well, it's the same thing. Can I have some water, please?
Oliver. Please have some more.
Good musical reference.
So this is where it all starts. Now Yosef has got something very specific. The relationship between Yosef and, the relationship between Yosef and his father, plus the relationship between Yosef and his brothers, is going to be quite challenging. What's the problem here? So the father is obviously favoring Yosef because he is the only thing which is left from his wife, besides Benjamin. But Benjamin is a small baby now, right? And Yosef is a person which we can talk to, we can do something with him, we can sit and learn with him, we can. And Yaakov eventually decides that all his knowledge which he received in the yeshiva of Shem Va'eva is going to pass on to he's going to pass on to Yosef. So he wants Yosef to be the person who is carrying on the red thread through the heritage. Yeah, Yaakov has got 12 sons, so he can't focus on all the 12 sons at the same time and in the same way. So he rather gives it, he chooses one son, and obviously he's going to choose the son, which is the son of his favorite wife, is going to become his favorite son. And what does he do with him? Who knows how he showed his favoritism to him?
He gave him a kind of jacket.
What kind of jacket?
Multicolored.
A multicolored jacket. So
Many
this is,
colours.
I don't know where the multicolored comes from, but it might be in some
Should have
kind
down
of,
somewhere.
it was, yeah, well, fine.
Right.
He gave him a,
Animation.
does anybody know what the language in the Torah
Is
is?
it made out of different furs, no?
No, it wasn't made of fur at all.
No.
It was a tunic made out of silk.
So,
Yes.
Shopping Primark.
And it was, the word in the Torah is ve'osoloi kesoines pasim. And we need that word. We need the word pasim. He made him a tunic pasim. He made him a tunic which is pasim. What does pasim mean? So the question now will be, what does pasim mean? And pasim means, be careful not to move this because we are on camera here. So pasim is,
So I thought you was getting drunk.
the camera.
pasim is, so what is pasim? Pasim, the normal translation for the word pasim would be, what's pasim? Donet pasim, how do you translate this in English?
Stripes?
Oh, okay, so the Hebrew translation for pasim is stripes.
Shalom Aleichem, Yosef Sadiq.
Stripes,
That's the word for
stripes.
German.
Usually I'm coming with a striped shirt here, yeah? Today it's a checkered one. A stripe.
Stripes jacket, not multiple.
This would be the normal Hebrew answer, but as we will see in a second, it's going to be different. It's not going to be that.
Different shades, one colour.
What the Gemara tells us,
50 Shades of Grey.
the Gemara tells us,
There you go.
Well,
the
still
Gemara,
one colour.
listen to this,
Guys, come on, focus.
This is live.
the Gemara tells us that
Sorry.
the way he did it was, he had, the main body of that tunic was one color, and the right and the left sleeve had different colors.
Oh.
And we don't know if the sleeves are multicolored, but they had one color on one side, one color on the other side. And why did he do this? Because he wanted to put a message in this. There was a message hidden in that concept that tunic has got three colors. And the message was that in the same way as one sleeve, two sleeves on the side, a body in the middle, you're noticing the body is different. The same way something else in the future will have a split in the middle in the merit of that guy which is carrying this, which is donning that tunic. So again, we will,
It would have been the same colour.
but the Gemara says it was in different colors. It was in different colors. Let's say there was red and green,
Yeah.
and in the middle was blue.
Right.
Okay. Now that blue, because right and left, this is a split in the middle, yeah,
Right,
right.
right.
So the question is, what message does Yaakov Avinu want to put into this tunic, which is so to say a prophecy for the future? Something in the future will split, and it will be a right and a left, and something in the middle. What is this going to be?
The kingdom.
Well, much earlier, much.
The tribes,
What?
they get split because they sell.
So this is what he's. Well, okay, that's also good.
So there's something that Jacob knew would happen.
There is something which Jacob knew that in the future is going to happen. Not he knew.
Parting of the water.
Ah, very good. So say it again, loud and clear. What is it? Huh? So don't be shy. Splitting of the sea. Exactly, exactly. So how did?
You gave it away.
So listen to this. So first of all, I'm going to show you something amazing here.
Another timeline.
What did we say? What's the name of the what's the tunic called? It's called the Ktonet Pasim. Yeah?
Wow.
Ktonet. No, it's not a gematria.
Oh,
Ktonet is the tunic. This is a tunic, right?
I know.
And then the Pasim. How do you spell Pasim? How do you
Summer.
Don't throw your sweets at
pay
Hebrew.
summer Yud
Yeah, double S.
Now if this tunic is a tunic where the pasim is the color which is different, yeah? So that means that within that word, there's something about splitting. How can you split this word? Pas, yam, yeah? So you've got yam here,
Which is C.
which is the sea,
Wow.
and the pas is about going through that sea.
Wow.
Yeah, so
What
that
does pasim mean?
pasim in Hebrew
This is not
literally
like
it means striped, but it's not. This can't be applicable here. Okay, so
Yum means water.
yam means water, and pas is about here in that word pas we have got hidden the fact that they will walk through. This has got to do with the schut, with the pay, with the samach. Samach are the 600,000 people which are going to walk through. Samach is 60, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lieberman.
Samach is 60.
How many years later
60.
was
So
it?
we've got 600,000 Jews which are going to walk through the.
Just casually add on 3 zeros.
Yeah? Yeah.
Just casually add on 3 zeros.
Well, it's the 6. This is what's important. Yeah, the 600,000 people, and their pay has got to do something with the mouth, which they did correct, and in that schut they were able to go through here. Okay, 600,000 Jews went out of Egypt and
Just
went
men,
through.
no Jews. That was just men.
These were, of course,
Between 20 and 60.
between 20 and 60, but this is, I don't want to get, hang on a second, I don't want to get lost in that area, because we want to talk about Joseph. And the point is, we will talk another time, why is it 600,000 Jews, so there were much more than that, why does the Torah only talk about this? This is a different question for another time. But here, what we need to know is that Joseph had this ktoines pasim. One second, he had this tunic which was made out of pasim, and in that word pasim, Jacob had a prophecy buried in, or a message hidden in, that the Jews will eventually split the sea. And why is it about Joseph that he's going to split the sea? What's the connection between Joseph and splitting of the sea? We will come to that in a second. Let me, what do you...
No, I'm just saying, because the 6 seems quite significant, because that is only like a naught less, and then there was 6 million.
Exactly, but I said I don't want to speak about that. About that, I don't want, because we will lose ourselves.
I know.
And if Shuni walks in here, then it is even
She's
worse.
unawares, isn't she?
Ah, okay, good. Right. yeah. She,
For another short.
so, Nomi, what
Not
else?
for
That's a 2-second question.
Yeah.
No.
Literally.
one true.
The thing, the joke that he had,
Too late.
Yeah.
did they also have it all those years later when they passed through the sea?
If it was still around,
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that, but it's not relevant. It's not important.
Right.
And you'll soon, if you listen to, if you continue focusing here, then you will know why it's not important.
Was his descendant
It's
the
an
one who
excellent-
jumped in the sea first?
It's an excellent question, because I'm always asking myself, where is that thing? Yeah, where is it gone afterwards? Because we know, for example, that the road
Jacob had it, didn't he?
Jacob.
No.
No.
No, I know.
No, Jacob, they gave it to him.
Yeah, but then when he was sold,
Yes.
didn't the son...
Yes, so it came back. It came back to Jacob with the blood and all that. But where did it go afterwards? That's the question.
Because the silk, it probably disappeared.
Well,
I have a good,
that's
I have a good story.
we
to tell
don't
you.
know. The Torah doesn't give us the record on that. Okay.
I have a good story to tell you. I won't interrupt your speech, but I have a good story to tell you afterwards.
Okay.
It relates to exactly this question.
I'm looking forward to this.
Was
So,
was the descendant his descendant the first person who jumped in the sea?
no. But that's good that you bring this, because we will soon come to this. We are going to come to that. Rabbeinu Bachai speaks about that as well. So anyway, again, so Joseph has got this tunic which is made out of pasim, and in there is a hidden message that eventually in the future the Jews will go through the splitting of the sea. Now, Joseph is being sold. Ephraim and Menashe. Joseph is being kidnapped by his brothers, and they sell him to, and eventually he ends up being in Egypt. And I'm cutting the story short because I only want to take out the elements which are important for our talk tonight. So one of the things which happens to Joseph when he arrives in Egypt is he's being sold to the house of who?
Potiphar.
Of Potiphar, exactly. So that's also in the musical problem.
It is.
Okay. So he's being sold into the house of Potiphar. And Potiphar has got a wife. which we don't know what she's called. The Torah only tells us Eshet Potiphar, the wife of Potiphar. And this wife of Potiphar is finding, wie sagt man Gunst? She finds favor in the eyes of Joseph finds favor in her eyes. And she really makes a lot of effort to get together with Joseph. And every day, the Gemara says that 3 times a day she was changing her clothes, and she was doing up her hair, and she was doing her makeup, only to be nice and to find favor in Joseph's eyes. But Joseph is not just a Joseph. Joseph is a very holy person, and he doesn't care. He doesn't look at her. He doesn't look at her. He doesn't take any notice of her. When she realizes this, the Gemara says that he made, I don't know what it's called in English, such a thing here where you can't move the head, like a hard collar, like a brace, yeah, a brace, where he cannot walk like this anymore. He needs to look up. And what does he do? He looks like this. When she comes here, he looks there. He doesn't look at her at all. And one day, the Gemara says, there was a big holiday in town. There was like a kind of a Ramadan or something. Yeah, there was a Ramadan or something going on there, and everybody went to the place. There's another opinion that it wasn't a holiday, but it was a premiere of one of the musicals which was running. Yeah, at Theatron, that's what it says there. And everybody went. Everybody from the house of Paro, everybody from the house of Potiphar, everyone went to this musical or to the feast or whatever it was. And only the wife of Potiphar stayed at home. Why did she stay at home? Her excuse was that she is sick. And the Gemara says, and the Mefarshim, the commentators on that Gemara say that actually she was sick, because she was love sick. She wanted to be with her. That's what they say. She wanted to be with her, and all her friends said, "You look so terrible. Why are you so pale? Why are you looking so bad?" And you know what the Medrash says? That one day she told her friends, "Can you please come to my house? I'll give you a lot of oranges." The Gemara actually says etrogim. I need to peel etrogim. So she was very rich. She gave them silver knives and a whole box of etrogim. All her friends were sitting around the table like we are sitting here, and they were peeling with the knives the etrogim. And then she called Joseph behind the curtain, and Joseph was standing there, and she suddenly opened the curtain. And everybody looked what's going on behind the curtain, and they saw Joseph standing there, and they were so amazed by his look and by how he came across, by his his appearance, that they didn't realize that they are cutting their hands instead of peeling the esrogim. So then they said, everybody shouted out that, from pain. Suddenly the knife is in their fingers. And then she said to them, now you understand why I'm so sick? Yeah, you understand why I look like this? Because look at you're only here for an hour, and this is how you react. And I've got this like a whole year around me. Yeah, exactly. So this is what the Gemara says. So therefore she used this excuse, and she said, I'm sick, I can't go. She was alone with him in the house. And on that day, she goes up to him and she says, now you are only with me and nobody sees, and let's do it. My bedroom is ready. We are going up there and we are going to have a nice time together. And in that moment comes he looks at the window and he sees the image of his father.
Don't do it.
And this father of his and the image of his father speaks to him, and he says, Joseph, you should know that you are 12 brothers, and every brother will have in the future a stone on the breastplate of the Kohen, of the high priest in the Bet HaMikdash. Do you really want that your name should not appear there? Wow. And in that moment he says to himself, I'm not going to do it. And she says, what do you mean you're not going to do it? Of course what did you see? What happened just now? And he doesn't say nothing, but she holds him on to it, on his shirt, and he undresses his shirt like this, that the shirt stays in her hand, and he runs off. And he runs out on the street, and she runs after him, and she shouts, this Hebrew slave which they brought into my house, he just wanted to rape me, and he wanted to do this, and he wanted to do that. And of course the police and everybody comes and arrests him and puts him into a prison, into a pit. Potiphar, he knew what kind of wife he has got. He knew exactly that she's playing games here. So he looked after him. And the Torah tells us that the favor of him was in everybody's eyes. Even when he was in prison, the prison guard gave him all the keys, and he says that you are in charge here, you make sure that everything runs across, the way it has to run. You are the man, and you are staying here. And he stays there for 10 whole years. He stays in prison. And eventually, and that's the key which we need here now, when the 10 years come to an end, just before they come to an end, he realizes the 2 of his prisoners, which are there under his control, are looking very, very sad and very, very bothered. They look like something happened to them. What can happen in a prison? What could have happened? There was no Mariana at that point. There were no mobile phones in this prison cells. What could have happened? So he approaches them, and he says, I can see, Panecha zo'afim, your face looks very bothered. What's going on? So the one says that I've had a dream last night, and I'm so bothered by that dream because I dreamt something, and I dreamt about this a solution to the dream. What's a pitaron? An interpretation to the dream, but that interpretation doesn't fit to the dream which I dreamt. And only he ends talking, so his other friend says, I had the same thing. I also dreamt something and it doesn't fit. So Yosef tells them, you know what, if you want, you can tell me the dream, because maybe Hashem will help me and I will know what the interpretation is. So one of them is a baker, and the other one is a cupbearer. One of them is a cupbearer, one of them is a baker. And the baker says that I dreamt that I have got, that in 3 days' time, the one who pours the wine, So one of them, the baker says that I dreamt that in 3 days' time, Paro will ask me to bake again, and somehow I'm going with a basket of bread on my head, and the birds are eating the bread out of my head. And this bothers me because I dreamt some kind of interpretation which I don't understand what it is. So Yosef tells him, you know what your dream is? In 3 days' time, Paro will get you out of here, but he will hang you he will kill you and he will hang you on a tree. And the birds might come and will eat your flesh. So the wine bearer says, exactly, that's the interpretation which I dreamt. I'm sure he's saying the right thing, because that's exactly what I dreamt, and that's bothered me, because it doesn't fit to my dream. So Joseph asks him, what did you dream? So he says that I dreamt that I am again bringing wine to Paro. So he says, yes, that's exactly what you will do. In 3 days' time, Paro will take you out of here, and you will be bringing wine again. So the baker confirms that that's the right interpretation for him. And this is exactly what happens. 3 days later, they are both released of prison. The baker is being taken and hung on a tree, and Joseph and the wine bearer goes back to the palace, and he's again back in business. But before they leave, Joseph tells him, "Please remember to please remember me to announce my name at Paro's house, that Paro should know that I am here for nothing." And this is how the parsha ends. And the next parsha starts with the story that Paro himself has a dream. He's got this Mekates, Parshas Mekates starts that he's got a weird dream. What's his dream? His dream is he's got 2 dreams. He's got one dream with the cows. Yes, exactly. The skinny cows are eating the big cows, and then he's got the same dream with wheat. Yeah, there are stalks of wheat, and the very bad wheat are eating the good wheat. Here she is. Look at her. And there's a chair for her? Okay. So Paroi is very bothered by this dream, and what does he do? What does Paro do? Paro.
The butler tells him about Joseph, doesn't he?
Exactly. שוני, אנחנו עכשיו באמצע פרשת מקץ. What does Paro do? Paro calls together all his witchcrafters and everybody who has got some kind of spirituality in Egypt, and he tells them, I had a bad dream, and I don't know what the interpretation of that dream is. And everybody tries to give him some kinds of interpretation, and he's not happy with any of the interpretations because he exactly the same. The Gemara tells us that he dreamt the dream, and he also dreamt the interpretation. But he couldn't remember it once he got up. Once he got up, he only remembered the dream, but he didn't remember. And he thought to himself, if someone will come and will give me the right interpretation, I will remember, it will ring a bell. And none of these rang a bell. So suddenly this butler comes up and he says, I remember I was in prison 2 years ago, and there was a Jewish slave there which was able to interpret my dream, and it exactly happened the way. And Paro says, what, really? Go there quickly and bring him here. And the language of the Torah is that what they did is Vayiritzuhu minabor. Yeritzuhu comes from a language of rats. Rats means they rush. They went very quick, and they did it like Joseph didn't know what's happening. I'm here already for 12 years, and suddenly they're pulling me out of this prison, and they're shaving me, they're showering me, they're giving me the most beautiful clothing, and everything happens in such a rush and in such a speed, he couldn't even follow. And then he comes to Paro, and Paro gives him the dream, and he tells him, I dreamt about the cows, I dreamt about the stalks of produce, tell me what the story is. And Joseph turns around to Paro and tells him what the interpretation is. And the interpretation is obviously that he's going to be, there'll be 7 years of plenty, and afterwards there will be followed of 7 years of famine. And the famine will be that strong that they will forget that there was good years here. It will be such a bad famine that everything will be forgotten. And that's the reason why the fat cows, why the skinny cows ate the fat ones, right? Because it means that the skinny years are making forget everything which happened in the plenty years. And Paro is very happy with his interpretation. He rings a bell, and at the end he makes him the second in command, and he gets the whole of the Egypt under his thing. And this is the reason why eventually, when the brothers come down to Egypt, they are able to get some food, and eventually they reveal themselves. He reveals himself to Joseph, and the whole story is finished. And the end of Sefer Bereshit, the Torah tells us that Joseph called his brothers, and he told them, I'm asking you, please do me a favor. I'm telling you, you will be enslaved in Egypt for so and so long, and when you will eventually be redeemed, I would like you to take my bones and take me out of here and bury me in Eretz Israel.
And he transported it through the water.
Exactly. Right? So now through the water and through the wilderness. Now this is the whole story of Joseph.
It was in the water, then he said some praise or something, and it floated.
No. Now you're confusing two things. That's when Moses. No, when Moses.
He was a kid at the time. He had that was late. He took the kid. He took the Shimon for us.
Exactly. No, so you are confusing two things. Before the Jews left Egypt, Moshe Rabbeinu knew that they have to take the what's in our room? The coffin. They have to take the coffin of Joseph as well, and he didn't know where it is. So first of all, he had to find out where it is, and the only person which survived all these years was Serach bat Asher. Serach, the daughter of Asher, one of the 12 tribes. She was a granddaughter of Jacob. She merited to live that long for a very simple reason. Because eventually, when the brothers realized that Joseph is the second in command in Egypt, Joseph gave them a lot of presents, and the message to take back to Jacob to tell him that I am still alive. But Jacob was an old man at that time, so they couldn't shock him with this. So what did they do? Serach bas Osher, she was playing the harp. She was an amazing musician. She was a small child at the time, and they put her outside the tent of Jacob playing this music. And when Jacob hears, what is she playing there? What's the lyrics of that song? What's going on here? And then they say, I don't know, let's go and ask her. And she comes back and she says, Joseph is still alive in Egypt. Joseph is still alive in Egypt. And when this happens, So this is when Jacob realizes that Joseph is still alive, and this is when the reunion happens. So Yaakov gives her a blessing that she should have a long life. And because she has a long life, and because she survived all these years, she knew where the Oron is. But then, pardon?
Who was she?
She was the daughter of Osher, Serach
She
Bas
was
Osher.
stepdaughter, by the way. She wasn't the real daughter. She was the daughter of Usher's second wife.
That could be. I
But
don't
he
know
brought
that.
her up like his own. That's why she's Bas Asher, but it wasn't the real
Okay,
daughter.
could be. I don't know that detail, but thanks
And
for
the same
sharing.
subject,
Yeah.
the same story I'll tell you about later.
Okay, good. So, ladies and gentlemen, what happened next was then. Now that's where your confusion is. So when Sarah Bas Osher tells Moshe Rabbeinu that the coffin has been thrown down the Nile by the Egyptians, then he knows where it is, but he still doesn't know exactly where it is. So he takes a piece of wood. He takes a piece of Joseph's coffin. Joseph's coffin has never been
When he
buried.
died,
When he died in Egypt, they put him into a coffin, and the Egyptians wanted to get rid of him forever, so they put him into the Nile. One Medrash says that because they believed in him, they made him like a kind of a god. They put him into the Nile, which was also a god for them. Okay, so they put him in. Pardon? So they were. I've got too much to say in too a short time. So they come to the Nile and they take. Moshe Rabbeinu takes a piece of wood and he writes on it Alei Shor. Come Ale Shor. Why Shor? Because Shor is the name. This is how Jacob blesses him at the end of his life. Everybody gets a blessing, and everybody is likened to something else. And Joseph is likened to an ox. Yes. So therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu, why it's a different story. I know you want to know all these kind of details, but we'll have a one-to-one about this. So Moshe Rabbeinu takes a wood and writes on it Alei Shor, puts it into the Nile, and suddenly this coffin starts rising from the water, even though that it was in plada. What's plada in English?
Helmet?
No.
Steel.
It's not iron. It was. What's the thing which we've got in the pencils?
Lead.
Lead. Even though that there was lead attached to it, lead is the heaviest metal in order to sink down. But this Alei Shor thing made it come up, and they take that coffin and they walk out of Egypt. Now says the Tehillim. 1 second. I want to keep the flow, but keep your question. I'll answer it afterwards. In Tehillim, in 114 Kuf Yud Dalet, this is Hallel, and in Hallel there is a line there which says Hayam Ra'a Vayanos Hayarden Tisov Le'achor. Hayam Ra'a Vayanos, sorry. We say it on Pesach, we say it on every Rosh Chodesh, we said it today. Hayam Ra'a Vayanos. So says the Gemara, says the Midrash, Kuf Yud Dalet. The Midrash says, Ma Ra'a Hayam Vayanos. What did the sea see? What did the sea, E-A, see with double E, that he had to escape? Vayanos means to escape.
who had to escape?
Eh?
Who had to escape?
The sea escaped.
Why did the crab?
Yes. So what is it referring to? Hayom Ra'a Vayanos. It refers to. Listen to this, Claudia. Ruchel Hinder. Ruchel Hinder. Listen to this.
What is that with these words?
Can we get back on track?
I'm trying. When Tehillim tells us Hayom Ro'o Vayonos, that the sea saw something in order to escape. Yes, what are we referring to? I'll tell you what we are referring to. This whole chapter of Tehillim is talking about Yetzias Mitzrayim, about the exile.
The Pharaoh, maybe. I don't
No, it's not the Pharaoh. So the Tehillim tells us that when the Jews came to the Yam Suf, when they came to the sea of reeds, then it split, and the Jews were able to walk through. Now, what did the sea see in order to actually split itself? That's the question which Yalkut Shavoini asked, the Medrash asked, the Gemara asks, that every...
That dude that jumped into the water.
No, so that's what he said before, but I'm coming back to that. Nachshon ben Aminodov. I'll come back to that. I'll come back to this in a second. So there are two opinions there. One opinion is that it was Nachshon ben Aminodov. I'll come to that in a second. But the other one is Aroinoi Shel Yosef. There are two versions there. There's one version which is Arono Shel Yosef, the coffin of Joseph, and there's another version which is Atzmoisov Shel Yosef, the bones of Joseph. Yeah, so there's two opinions. One opinion is that the sea saw the coffin, and the other opinion is that he saw the Atzmot Shel Yosef. Now, we have to understand, what is there so exciting about a coffin or about bones of a dead person that their whole nature comes to a halt? How is that possible? Huh?
No, we don't know where the coat is.
What is so? Of course, we have now got this message. Slowly, we are coming to the end of this clue. Yeah. So, of course, we said at the beginning, Passim. Yeah. That Jacob instilled into his tunic the message that eventually at one time this will split. But at that point, Jacob didn't know if Joseph is going to be alive. Right? It could have been that Jacob didn't know that he's going to die in the meantime. He could have lived another 300 years and he would have gone there alive through that thing. Yeah, it could have been. So we don't know. So, of course, the fact that there is a coffin of Joseph, or that there are bones of Joseph, we need to know what is the connection here. Says the Kliyoko, the Rabbeinu Bachaya, there are many commentators which go in the same direction, and they're explaining the following thing. We told the story of the wife of Potiphar. So we have to imagine this. We have got a how old was he? 29-year-old man, yes? A 29-year-old man when he's being pulled out of prison and presented to Paroi. Before that, he was 12 years in prison. So he was 17, 18 years old, plus minus, a young fellow, a very handsome guy. He looked beautiful. He made sure that he doesn't lose his character. He was beautiful. He was handsome. He curled his hair all the time. Yeah, he curled. Hayam salsel b'sa'aro. This is. Oh, so let's work it out now.
People straighten their hairs these days, don't they? They want to
So let's work it out. This is what we are trying to find out now. What's the biz gdule on this? So the point is this.
Obviously, she was attracted to him. She can see how much effort he's putting into it. Pretty.
Exactly, but you know what?
17 years old.
He's alone. He's alone in that castle with her. He knows that there's no chance for a girlfriend for him because he's a slave, right? He's a slave. He's actually bored. And if she looks beautiful enough, then there's no reason why they shouldn't come together. Okay. But, as we pointed out before, he managed to control his inclination, and there was no way that he's going to do this. And when he was just about to lose it, his father appears as a dukan, and he tells him, be careful, if you do this, then you're losing your space on the breastplate of Aaron HaKohen. And he doesn't do it, and not only on the breastplate of Aaron HaKohen. Exactly.
Why Judaism put so much emphasis on? I mean, he was not married back then, but it's.
Okay. Wait. Okay, wait a second. So the point is. The point. Oh, very good, very good. Look at this. This man has got the answer. Look at this. You are jumping the gun now. I'll go for this. No, of course you've got the answer. The answer is very clear. Listen to this. Listen carefully. The wife of Potiphar is what? Is she Jewish?
No.
Okay, so what?
She saw there'll be.
No, but I'm not. I don't want to go down this route. 1 second. Very, very simple, without any, without getting lost in Midrashim and Kabbalah and so on. What is she? She is
a married woman.
She's a married woman. What religion has she got? It doesn't even matter what religion she has, but she's bound to what? She's bound to the 7 Noahide laws. Everybody is bound to the seven Noachide laws.
How can
Wait. Everybody is bound. Everybody is bound into the 70. Everybody is obligated to keep the seven Noachide laws. Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach.
Spiritual traditions of their own vows, their own spiritual wisdom.
Please wait.
You just
Can you
come and
can you please wait a second? I'm not forcing.
Spiritual part on others.
Shuni, rega echad.
Don't
Wait, I'm getting there. I will get there. Just wait a second.
I never seen that I'm accepting seven.
Why don't you wait? למה אין לך סבלנות? גברת, חכי שנייה, עוד מעט, אנחנו מגיעים לשם. אני ידעתי לאיזה... I knew that I'm putting myself into the mouth of the bear when I say this. So be careful, wait a second. חכי, רגע, עוד מעט הכל יהיה בסדר. So the point was that everybody at this time is bound to the Sheva Mitzvot B'nei Noach. The seven Noachide laws was. And today all the non-Jews are still. Yes? Okay, and one of the seven Noachide laws is that you are not allowed to commit adultery. Yes? So for Joseph to be with a woman is not a problem because he is single. But she is a married woman. Kol asher what's the word? What's the language there? No, this is not exactly what it is. No, but in I haven't got the Shmois here, but in Shmois, in that story, when Potiphar appoints Joseph as his slave, he tells him, "I'm giving you all the keys to this palace. The only thing which you cannot touch is my bread." And the Gemara says, "What does it mean, my bread? My bread is my wife." The only thing which you cannot touch, we have to understand why this is called like this. Except the bread, you cannot touch anything. Okay, so the point is this, that she's a married woman and he is not allowed to get involved with her. What is the punishment for somebody who commits adultery?
Stoning.
Well,
Removed away from the.
no, skila is only when it's a Kohen, but not for a normal person. Which,
Castration.
huh? What did you say? Castration. Chenek is strangulation. Strangulation. There's strangulation. Yes. So
Sounds so compassionate.
the Gemara in Kesuvas says, the Gemara in the Tractate of Kesuvas says that in a time where there is no Sanhedrin, where there is no high court, we cannot perform the four different types of punishment, but they are still around Misabi de Shamayim. Hashem will still put on somebody a specific onesh, even though that there is no human being who is going to do it, who is going to execute it. So, for example, if somebody commits adultery, then the things will happen that, for example, he will drown in a sea. He will drown in the sea because he will be suffocated by the sea. 1 second. Shuni, b'vachasha, shniya, rega. So this is what the Gemara says. So says the Kli Yakar, and says Rabbeinu Bachaya, and others say it as well. When the Jews came to the splitting of the sea, then what happened was that actually everybody was involved somehow or in some way in kind of adultery. The only reason why they were not drowning in the sea was because there was a Yosef around, which had a merit of saving all the Jews. For what reason? Because he managed to withstand this inclination at that time. So he, in his merit, and this is what David HaMelech says. Hayom ro'o vayonos. What did he see? He saw Joseph, and he said, in the merit of Joseph, we are going to make sure that none of those Jews is going to drown because of him. But who did drown? Who did drown? Who did drown? The Egyptians, because they were completely, they are shtufim bezima. They are very, very much into adultery. All her life is surrounded of adultery, and therefore, they didn't have anybody to be saved because of their merit, and that's why they were drowned. Now,
And Paro not.
and Paroi not, because Paroi was not drowned, because he was.
He wasn't a dog.
No, there was another reason why he was saved. He was saved because we needed a witness which can go out into the world and say what happened here, right? Right. The Medrash even says that he did tshuva. Paroi did complete tshuva, and after, and I think after 10 years, I'm not sure about the number, but after a certain amount of years, he started to build up a new imperium in a different place in Africa. Right, so
1 year per plague.
Huh? Pardon?
1 year per plague.
It could be. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the number, but this is what it says there. So anyway, what do we have so far? We have so far a Joseph, which is an amazing man. He's a tzaddik. Now we understand why he's called a tzaddik. And now we understand where does his tzidkah start? Where does his righteousness start? Not in the house of Potiphar. It starts by his mother giving him a name that he should be called Yosef, because her intention for asking that name was that she wants another son. But Joseph, if you realize with what difficulty his whole life went from his youth by having problems with his brothers, you know what means having problems with brothers, right? Problems with brothers, and then carrying on, and then with the brothers. And then carrying on being enslaved in Egypt, and then going through the troubles with the brothers when they come as spies, and the whole story until the end of his life.
And not sleeping with a pretty woman.
And not sleeping with a pretty woman, and everything going through all these problems. This is a Hosafa of problems. It's always an adding on, Hosafa, Yosef, to add on. It's adding on challenge and challenge and challenge and challenge, and he manages all these challenges. He never loses any of these challenges. And this is very similar. So this is the reason why it's Yosef, and it's all sourced in the tefillah which Rachel had. Rachel's prayer was, please give me more, give me more, give me more, and help me to overcome a next challenge. And this is, and I can go on and on. I don't think that everybody, we are getting tired here. But the point is this. So let's come back to Rosh Chodesh and Rosh Hashanah. We've got Rosh Chodesh Tammuz today. We have got Rosh Chodesh Tammuz today, which was his memorial day, his yahrzeit today, 1st of Tammuz. So in his schus, Hashem will help us that we are going on a long journey now. We are having not easy days in front of us, because it will be Tammuz, Shivos Tammuz, which we will have to find out why we should still be joyous, even though it's Shivos Tammuz. We will come into Tisha B'Av, and eventually we're coming into Elul, and then we are ending up with Rosh Hashanah. But if we are going in his footsteps by adding on more strengths and asking for more tefillah and davening more and more and more and getting connected, and eventually when we end this journey at the end of those 3 months, when we will be on the 29th of Elul, and it will be Rosh Hashanah in the evening, we'll start eating apple and honey and the head of a fish, then we will be so strong because we did exactly what he did. And that's the reason why it starts off on the 1st of Tammuz. And may Hashem help us that we will all have the encouragement and the courage to go that journey and to have it all on us. And in the schut of Yosef Tzaddik, all our tefillahs should be answered.
Amen.
Wow, Jacob, fish is quite nice actually. When you buy fish,
Without the
you keep the head.
Proper chin there. At the moment, my boxing days, it's like that. You see like flash.
So how many days are we now
Stainless
with
steel.
Moses being up in the mountain?
That's of course our main question, yeah? And let's work it out. How do we
In
stop
the
this?
middle of the first set.
Dear Faye.
Yeah, but like 20.
How do we stop it?
Oh, don't show me.
I'm not familiar with.
What's it with the shrimps? The pigs to me and the women all the time.
There you go, so we're a month in.
What
Up here.
day of that was
All right.
it?
And
So we're like